Good afternoon to everyone. Nice to see everyone. Welcome to today's webinar, Tourism Industry in the New Normal. We have a list of very important persons in the industry that will talk to us today about how their particular sectors are doing and what are their plans for the post-COVID scenario. I would like to, by the way, I'm Jojo Clemente, the President of the Tourism Congress of the Philippines and today's moderator. I would like to introduce our guests for this afternoon. From the airline industry, we have Attorney Roberto Lim, who will tackle the industry issues. Attorney Lim is the Vice Chairman and Executive Director of the Air Carriers Association of the Philippines, or CAAP. From the hotel industry, we have Ms. Christine Urbanoso Ibarreta, who is the President of the Hotel Sales and Marketing Association and the Director of Sales and Marketing of Golden Phoenix Hotel, to discuss with us issues on the tourism transport sector, and also a member of the Tourism Congress of the Philippines Board, along with Ms. Christine. We have Mr. Victor VG Martinez, who is also the President of Bel Air Bus Corporation. And last but not least, from the MICE sector, we have Mr. Joel Pascual, the President of the Philippine Association of Convention Exhibition Organizers and Suppliers, or PASEOS, and Pep Tarsus Corporation. So with that, I'd like to welcome all of our guests this afternoon. It's Thank you very much for accepting our invitation to talk about your respective sectors. Uh, as we had discussed earlier, backstage, our format will be for you to give us a situationer or the current situation that your sectors are experiencing, and after that, perhaps to share with us what are your views on the scenario post-COVID for your respective sectors. So with that, I would like to ask our first speaker, Attorney Lim, to talk about the airline industry. Bobby, please go ahead.
Yeah. Thank you, Jojo. I'd like to thank the Tourism Congress now for organizing this webinar so we can have a dialogue, interaction with the travel and tourism sector, of which the airline industry is a part of. We are all in the same boat. We have stopped flying for more than a month now. And that means all of us in this industry have not generated any revenue. So our challenges are the same. How to pay for the fixed costs. Insofar as the airline industry, the fixed cost for us would be salaries of thousands of employees, rentals, navigational charges, and of course the aircraft leases. Those capital equipment and operating equipment continue to charge rent, even though they are on the ground. In the interim, we have done sweeper flights, repatriation flights. This was organized on a private basis or through the intermediation of the Department of Tourism, uh, which I think is a great service to our tourists who were stranded here in the Philippines. What is emerging as a continuing uh, flow of traffic would be the OFWs and seamen that are returning or have returned and are now on quarantine. So we all know of our losses. We have, I think, the way forward is for us to have a more smooth regulatory system in dealing with the movement of people. No? So the good thing is that we now know that the new date for the lifting of the ECQ is on May 15th. We have already touched base with the aviation authorities, and have submitted to them our operational issues and concerns so that we can start uh, on May 15. Actually, we met them already last week in the hope that we could start on May 1. So this morning, we had the meeting with them online, and we have an agreement in principle on the hygiene and sanitation protocols to be adopted for domestic and international flights so that both the airlines, the private sector, and the public side, which is the airport and government authorities, can have a common ground on how to approach the safety of passengers, the safety of flights, from entering the airports, uh, check-ins, uh, immigration, making sure that we disinfect all of the touch points in the airport. We also got to discuss uh, that there is a possibility, based on the general announcement we heard this morning, that domestic flights can possibly resume if the flight is from Manila to an ECQ destination.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, we are seeking a clarification if this is at all possible because ECQ destination, domestic destinations would be those with low infection rates, no? Such as Tacloban, Dumaguete, Zamboanga. So we are writing and seeking the endorsement of the civil aviation authorities to clarify if this is at all possible, provided, of course, that the Department of Health guidelines on how to go about it approves also this limited domestic operation. So, uh, uh, if once we get the approval, then we would expect the civil aviation authorities to approve a gradual resumption of domestic operations, no, by the ACAP Airlines. All the airlines are interested to start operating. That's the good thing. AirAsia, PAL, PALEX, Cebu, Pacific, Sevgo, they're all ready to start. And in fact, on a more operational, detailed aspect, we have asked the civil aviation authorities to permit the airline personnel to start reporting for work so that we can prepare the aircraft which we need to take out from a short-term mothballing. No? We have to get those airplanes back in shape. There are safety maintenance procedures to be adapted to make them flyable again. We have, of course, commercial and marketing that needs to rev up selling activities. So all of this has to be done. Now, all of this personnel has to be allowed to work at least, no? Because some work requires a physical movement going to the airport. The other thing that we have also asked the aviation authorities is that assuming we're allowed to sell on limited domestic flights, the the passengers should be allowed to travel from Manila to the airport. So we would like to think that an officially issued airline ticket together with an official ID would allow them to reach the airport so they can travel. So these are operational concerns, no? And these are we have communicated this to the government, and this will be submitted to the ITF. No? We are hopeful that we get a positive feedback in the coming days or by tomorrow. Now, insofar as the financial affairs of the industry, we have written to government and we have sought for a waiver of navigational charges, parking charges, even rentals and other concession fees. We have asked that from the Department of Transportation, from CAAP, And we have also requested for a credit guarantee support from government. We have told them that it's not cash, outright cash, or a bailout that the industry needs, but a credit guarantee system so that the existing credit lines of the different airlines can be availed of and can be opened by the banks. Admittedly, the ACAP members have divergent capacities, but nevertheless, because the airline industry is vital and strategic to restarting the economy, that this credit guarantee support to be issued by the government, could be the central bank, is vital. No, this would assure the banking sector that they can safely lend money under existing facilities or provide new ones. So that is the state of the industry as of today. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Bobby. I think we can ask some questions right now before we
Yeah.
get to the next speakers. Um, you've been mentioning domestic travel so far, but are there any updates with regard to the international carriers as far as the Philippines is concerned for their future plans post-COVID?
The Sa international kasi, we're not in total control of that because the foreign countries have their own travel bans and restriction. No? We all know that Japan, for example, has canceled visas.
Yeah.
So that knocks out our ability to transport significant traffic to Japan. No?
Okay.
Korea and other countries still have their travel ban and restrictions. So
Mm.
we are dependent on that, even if we wanted to fly.
Yeah.
So domestic operation is that's why logically is the initial start of our flight resumption of flights.
Okay. Okay. Another question is you mentioned earlier, no, the fixed costs that may be involved when we start flying again, no, when it becomes practicable. In your opinion, can you share with us what new procedures that you envision will be in place when flying is allowed? No, how will social distancing be implemented? How what will it take for you to actually be able to board a flight to wherever you want to go? What kind of safety measures do you think will be implemented?
Well, initially we do not think that the plane will be full. Therefore, the airlines will have the ability to spread out the seating arrangement of the passengers.
Okay.
Uh, so, in other words, a low load factor allows the airlines the ability to observe social distancing. And we believe this will happen as a practical matter. But over time, as more and more people travel, we would still have to observe social distancing. And that is the
Mm.
expectation not only of government, but by the traveler who wants to be assured that they are safe, right?
Yes. Yeah.
And maybe the new normal is that you cannot achieve a 100% load factor for every flight uh, because you cannot really 100% load factor means there is no social distancing.
Yes.
But maybe a 70% load factor can approximate social distancing.
Yeah.
And then there are permutations. For example, a family of four or five. You can sit them together because you know that they are a family of five and they have one PNR. And that can be established to identification IDs. No?
Yes.
So there's no need for social distancing there because you know that they come from one group. No?
Hmm.
But yung mga individuals, yun ang mga kailangan mong i-observe. So that requires a lot more study, evaluation by at check-in on how to spread the passengers.
Mm. Okay.
Now, of course, safety starts on the ground. So when you enter the airport, all the hygiene and sanitation procedures, uh, X-ray, check-in, boarding
Yeah.
lounge, all of those we have identified in the framework agreement we are submitting, which we discussed this morning with Kaap, Mactan Airport, Clark, CAB was there, and also Manila International Airport Authority. So we had a online meeting this morning to discuss that framework agreement.
Regarding one of the things that we've been reading, no, especially now that some international carriers have resumed, or maybe they didn't even cut their frequencies. But one of the things that we are seeing is rapid testing of the
Mhm.
passengers. Do you think that is something that will be done here? And do you think it will be that readily available for people who may want to travel already?
Uh, well, it's a question of first is the reliability of these rapid testing kits. No, there are two types of tests. You have the PCR based, which is a more comprehensive test that takes longer,
Mhm.
and it will take more than a day to produce the result. And you have the antigen test, which can take 15 minutes.
Mm.
But if you provide the antigen test solely, then it is not as reliable.
Mm.
It has to work hand in hand.
Yeah.
So one scenario is you require the passengers to have the comprehensive testing 2 or 3 days before,
Okay.
and on the day of departure, you subject him to a antibody test in the airport premises and get the result in 15 minutes. Uh, Based on the information I received, by adapting these two tests together, then you have a more reliable result or reading on the status of the infection or non-infection of the patient.
Okay. Good. One running theme in the questions that we are receiving is how will the airfares look like, no, post COVID? Kasi since we're talking about these new measures that need to be implemented when it becomes practicable to travel. I'm not going to peg you on an answer, but I guess people would want to have some sort of indication if you expect the airfares to increase or stay where they were pre-COVID. What is your outlook on that?
But I think the airlines are long-term players. Uh, I think their business decisions are driven in having a sustainable model. So I don't think it will adopt a short-term strategy or short-term outlook of trying to recoup as much as possible in the shortest possible of time. No, obviously, what is more important for the airline, I think, is to perform its vital function of being a catalyst of economic development. So it is really bringing people and goods to throughout the islands. No, so yeah, I think you can expect the airline industry to pursue the Bayanihan spirit, making sure that things are affordable but also sustainable for the airline.
Okay, thank you very much. We'll come back to you later, Bobby. I think we'll have more questions as we progress. Okay, thank you very much for your presentation. That's very enlightening. Now we would like to move on to Ms. Christine Ibarreta to discuss with us the status of the accommodations in hotel industries. Tin, please go ahead.
Hi. Hi, good afternoon,
Good
Jo,
afternoon. Yes, good
everyone.
afternoon. Yes.
Okay. All right. For the hotel industry for Metro Manila, we're enjoying a very good occupancy in terms of bookings from seafarers, BPOs, medical workers. But of course, these are at a very affordable rates. Not the usual rates that the hotels are offering. Because of the Bayanihan spirit also, this is also a way of helping out the government. But after this, after May 15, after the 14 days quarantine, we don't know where to get the clients. And then for the Visayas, since there's no airlines going there, and the same also for Davao, of course, there are no guests. So our hotel industry is really bleeding, as I've said earlier in another webinar. But we are hoping and praying that um, a vaccine will be available. And as of now, in terms of the workers that we have, after May 15, we don't expect them to all report at the same time. It will be reporting in phases. Let's say the probably another department or sales and marketing would be half of them will be work from home, half of them will be in the office to just check out the contracts or renew contracts or revise contracts as well. So that for the meantime, the sales people and the marketing people and the Marcom are very busy um, putting up measures to ensure that once we get the domestic market, because we're all after the domestic market, we will have an audience in each of our segments. So,
Okay, thank you, Christine. Listening to the HSMA webinar earlier today, a lot of good ideas were being thrown around. And one of the things that was discussed earlier, and something also that we've been hearing from clients that are asking us about travel for the last quarter or maybe for next year, is that how open will the accommodation sector be with regard to lenient terms and conditions with regard to cancellations, refunds, because I think that is something that became suddenly important with the um, lockdowns and quarantines that were suddenly imposed, not only on the Philippines but on other countries as well. So they want to know, what are their options just in case something like this happens again.
the DOSM should actually talk to the GMs and the owners of the hotel to make a management decision whether is it occupancy, is it ADR? I'm sure it should be ADR. Instead of a full occupancy of, let's say, if you're enjoying a uh, 80 to 90% occupancy, will it be a little lower? But the rate should be revisited, contract should be revisited as well. So it depends also on what particular market you're catering to. Because what will you do if if your rates are still high and the market cannot afford? So we have to be very flexible.
Yeah. Okay, that's good to hear. I hope if I can inject some opinion, I hope we can come to a healthy balance as far as the rates and the demand will be concerned. Another question that I've been receiving is uh, because we hear that there are two schools of thought as far as the reopening or when the accommodation sector is active again. No, one is do we do lower rates or value added rates? So that is the one of the things that is being asked right now: lower rates versus value added rates. I think some hotels, uh, if I, from some conversations I've heard, have mentioned that maybe rates do not necessarily need to be lowered, but just add value to them. So
Mhm.
I'm interested to find out what is the sentiment or what is the disposition of the accommodations industry with regard to that.
of course, for the five-star hotels, we cannot expect them to lower down the rates because they have certain standards or, yeah, certain standards to maintain. As for the other uh, accommodation sector, it can be creative packaging, but people will say creative packaging, pero wala kang mang guest. So
Mm.
I'm thinking of creative packaging plus value added value added things that they can offer, or maybe bundle it uh, with something that the clients would need.
Okay, good. We've also been talking about the new normal, no? What procedures will be in place post COVID, and of course, we would also like to get the opinion or the sentiment of the accommodation. How much do you think will there be a substantial cost to implementing these things? No? Because probably now you will have to invest in sanitizing equipment, not only for the guests but also for housekeeping. Maybe reduced revenues due to social distancing, sa F&B, uh, things like that, and how the rooms should be allocated in a certain hotel. So, how much do you think those would play as far as costs for hotels would be considered?
Okay, for the new normal, I'm sure that the alcohol, sanitizers, the mask will be part of the amenities of the hotels because that's what we've been reading in our researches, and at the same time, for example, instead of the guards, there'll be nurses taking the temperatures of the guests coming in, and also we're looking into not accepting walk-in guests. They have to make reservations in advance so that we can also check the history, their health history, like what the Singapore government has been doing. They have a checklist whether you've been a patient or I know that this will be, some will say discriminatory, but then we just want to know. We have to check on them. We have to check how healthy they are or not, to also protect the rest of our guests. So, for example, also riding an elevator, taking the elevator instead of, let's say, 10, five should be allowed, or also for F&B, no more buffets, but instead prepare a bento box, or um, for um, for F&B as well to cater to deliveries in the nearby areas, to since there's no revenues coming in from the international market. Maybe we can, sabi nga ni Pearl earlier in our seminar, in our webinar, we have to find other ways and means to produce revenues for the hotel.
Okay, very very informative. Okay, we'll come back to you after the other speakers as well, so we can entertain questions from our viewers. Okay. So thank you for that, Tin. Now we would like to invite our tourist transport representative, Mr. VG Martinez, to talk about the tourist transport sector and what do they see, what how they are right now, and what do they see will be the future for tourist transport.
Good afternoon, President Jojo. Good afternoon, everybody.
Good afternoon.
Anyway, the guest speakers now, from the hotel, from the airline, and later on from Paseos, MICE, are our customers. If they don't have any clients, we do not have any clients also. That's the problem of this industry. We are really dependent on the arrivals and on the bookings of the hotels and the bookings of the uh, MICE, the meetings, convention, and incentives. Right now, the customers are airports, hotels, MICE, domestic travel is the one that will remain. Because domestic travel, educational tours, schools will be gone. Nobody will make educational tours until next year, probably. So we are left with two customers: domestic travel and company shuttle. Those who, because of the new normal in PUBs, public utility buses, which will only utilize 30% capacity, I don't think their employees will be able to go to the office. So, like what we are doing right now, they pick up their employees at certain pickup points, and then bring them to the office. So, what is the new normal now? The new normal now will be in for tourist buses. It's 50% capacity. So even if we don't have to increase the prices, the cost for whoever will rent the bus will be double. Instead of renting one bus, they have to rent two buses. So still, how many people can afford it? So what's the new normal now? The new normal is uh, before the passenger rides, if you do not have any mask, you do not have uh, you don't we provide alcohol. You don't wash your hands with alcohol, and if you do not get a temperature check, you're not allowed to ride. So that is from the passenger side. From our side, all our buses now, since the beginning of this, no, even before the lockdown, we went into deep cleaning. We had steam cleaners. We steamed clean all the interiors, the walls, the flooring, the seats. We steamed it, so to get all the bacteria dirt out. That's number one. Number two, every time the bus leaves the garage for a trip, it is fumigated with Lysol, parang aircraft na din. So, and then the drivers, before they ride, they have their blood pressure checked, and then they have their temperature checked. And it's a standard. They will not remove it even in the office. A face mask and a face shield. We bought face shields for. So that is our new normal now. Will it add cost to our operation? No, I don't think we can do that. We'll have to absorb it. That's the new normal now. So what is our customers now? Practically nil. Most of the people who are operating are only servicing, if you're servicing food, medicine, or pesa, you know, or
Yes.
now some OFW and OWAC charters, there is no business. So we really are dependent on arrivals. Without the airports, without the airlines coming in from abroad or domestically, we're on a standstill.
Oh, okay. Very interesting insights, no? Sometimes you take tourist transport for granted, and the role that they play. I understand the impact already of the social distancing will play as far as tourist
Yeah.
transport is concerned, because of course we do rentals for transportation, and it will drive up the cost, no? Um, but it's very good to know that stakeholders like you are implementing measures that you mentioned,
Yes,
no?
we have
Like
to do.
the sanitation. My question is, where do you get your Lysol? And then,
We're able to source. We tried Sondrox, but there is a
uh,
strong smell that
okay,
lingers. So
yeah.
it's very hard to know. We're
Yung
able to so far.
uh,
I don't know
question lang,
if it will run out.
yeah, when you do your testing, you do temperature checks you mentioned, and BP, no?
Uh,
Do you have any like sort of medical personnel or someone who's trained to do that
uh,
for the employees?
yes. My personal officer is a nursing graduate, but she did not take
Ah,
the board. Yeah.
yes. Okay.
So we're okay with that.
Yeah.
And another thing, regulations, Joe. we our problem before was the modernization,
Yes.
I don't think they can implement that. The industry cannot afford it. Any industry cannot afford it right now. You cannot buy new buses when there are no customers.
Yes.
When you are still amortizing, we have fixed costs also, just like the airlines. We have fixed costs also that we're paying without without the buses running. And number two, I think when you charter a bus, Joe, like you,
Yes.
when a bus is chartered, it's a group from a company. It's a group of people who know each other. I think
Yes.
we should ask for a waiver of the 50% capacity. Kilala mo naman yung mga tao dun eh. I mean,
Mm.
if you know the other person, you will not infect,
Mm.
you
Yeah.
know.
Okay.
So maybe in that sense, if you're a bus, public bus, people will ride on this corner, and you'll pick up
Mm.
another person in another corner. They
Mm.
don't know each other, and they come from different places.
Mm.
And then, you know, especially if it comes from Christine's hotel, we know that it's checked everything. We can ride 100% capacity,
Yeah. Yeah.
di ba?
Okay.
Because
Okay.
these are chartered for private use. Parang charter plane yan na when you ride, kilala mo yung the persons inside the bus or in the plane. So I
Mm.
think
Okay.
that would help. Maybe we should appeal the 50% in charter because these are private charters.
Yeah, well, I think that's something that can be
Yeah.
discussed with the task force, no? As soon as probably more so when the numbers for of the infections go down, when we're flattening the curve. I have an interesting comment here from one of our viewers, no? Si Manny Karay. Sabi niya, I hope you have a video to show travelers how you sanitize and create awareness and confidence. I think that's a
Oh
good
yeah.
idea for those transport companies that would like to find out how to do it. Maybe Bel Air can come up with an instructional video to educate, no? Para best practices ang magawa natin for our tourist transport operators around the country.
Yeah, I think it's in their Facebook account, Jojo.
Okay. Oh, good.
Oh,
Meron
it's on
pala.
Facebook. Yeah, it shows there how the face mask of the driver and the face shield of the driver, and how we
Uh,
deep clean the bus and how we fumigate the bus, because the bus has surfaces plenty. Handles,
mm,
metal surfaces, plastic surface. So
yeah.
if the people touch that, they can leave something,
Mm, yeah.
uh, a virus there. But so every time they ride, they have to alcohol. So because
Okay.
they come from the house, so when they touch it,
Mm.
we presume that they did not bring it from the outside. So it
Yeah.
protects also the other riders. Oh,
Uh-uh.
we have to, we're still
Okay.
working. We're working from the house, and we're thinking, we dream about these things.
Yeah, no. Okay. Thank you very much, VG. We'll go back to you also later on, no,
Yeah,
for some more
Jojo.
questions. Thanks. Thank you very much. May we now have Mr. Joel Pascual, the president of Paseos, to talk to us about the current MICE situation and what he foresees for the future of MICE post-COVID. Joel, take the floor.
Hi, Jojo. Thank you for having me. Anyway, often you hear my fellow speakers here use they're bleeding, they're struggling, but in terms of the mice, I'd like to use the adjective we're devastated. We really are devastated. Some of my peers actually have accepted that there won't be any events for the year. If you factor in, like in Davao, there is a memo, there is no events for the entire 2020. So that means forever for people who are having mice events there, it's zero income, zero events, no revenue at all.
Yes.
Is mice is all about bringing people together, and when there are uh, directives against mass gathering, which is very understandable, that takes away the core reason for our being, no, for our existence. So it's painful, really painful, but And I think compared to the other speakers before me, like the hotels, the airlines, and the tour operators, once everything clears up, they can easily take in customers and start generating jobs. For us, it takes more time for us to get up and go. So we cannot just at the flick of a finger suddenly come up with an event. So our ordeal will probably be longer than my fellow speakers. Okay, so in that scenario, although I say that, um, I always am trying to espouse the importance of mice in jumpstarting the economy. Okay, in reinvigorating the economy. So I am here to actually lobby that. I said this in the webinar that I was invited to a few days ago, to make us a priority, because what we bring is not only tourism, domestic and international tourism, but also we help the other speakers before us, no, before me. So we help the hotels, we help the airlines, we help the tour operators, and many other industries that are involved in putting together a MICE event. So um, that really is our plea, that we are not taken for granted, because we say this because often it's sexier to talk about leisure travel, but the business traveler actually is easier to restart, because they will have purposes to come over. They will be more purposeful in their arrivals. So if the industry or the government helps us, it will be mutually beneficial. So um, hopefully we can do this faster, but the prospects of 2020 seems to be becoming dimmer and dimmer. So but still, hoping for silver linings kahit paano. Jojo?
Mm. Yeah. Joe, a question lang, no? How do you propose to adjust? Kasi ngayon people are discovering alternative ways of meeting, like what we're doing now, no?
Yes,
And,
yes.
and, and Zoom meetings and like that. How do you plan to marry that with the traditional mice movements of pre-COVID, no? Since this is now an alternative, what do you think will be the evolution of the mice industry,
Okay.
considering those factors?
Okay. In many years ago, when the internet started booming, everybody said that the face-to-face will die. So there was a general concept out there that the face-to-face, the exhibitions will become virtual. They were saying it's an industry that will die. But the proof is, data says that it actually increased, even with the advent of the internet. So now the enemy is different. No? The enemy is the virus. There is fear involved in it. Um, there might be a need to retrofit it in terms of going virtual. Uh, for many of us, we're not that exactly 100% ready to go virtual, but we're now in a panic. We're now in a rush to go ahead and marry our face-to-face and our virtual presence. As of now, we need to continue communicating and servicing the industries we're involved in. Whether for me particularly, I'm so heavy in food, so we're coming up with virtual pathways within we can still service them. But once everything goes back to normal, I will still be the biggest cheerleader in terms of face-to-face meetings and exhibitions. So now we are forced to quicken the pace with which we will now learn new skills, so that we can be ready virtually as well. So it's a new opportunity. Let's just put
Yeah.
it that way. We're forced to bring in new opportunities for our industry.
Yeah. Okay. I guess another relevant question, and you would probably one of the best people to answer it. If you're trying to, I know you're doing your best to get the mice industry started. What is the value of face-to-face meeting as opposed to doing virtual meetings? If that was the question that was asked to you, how
Okay,
would you approach that?
okay. Only in like an exhibition can you make the most intelligent decision. Why do I say that? Because only in an exhibition can you engage all of your senses. You can smell it, you can touch it, you can feel it, you can talk to somebody and get an immediate question. You here virtually, you cannot smell anything, you cannot touch it. No, so the value of engaging all of your senses will never go out of style. It will always be important in making the most intelligent decision. Uh, as I said, I'm the biggest cheerleader in terms of propagating mice as an effective means of marketing, of engaging buyers and sellers together. So yun, kahit may virus, kahit ilang COVID pa yan, COVID 2020, COVID 2025, I will not change my position. Face-to-face will still be the most effective marketing tool available.
Okay, very good. Thank you very much. Very interesting insights from Mr. Pascual from the mice industry. If I can get the speakers together right now, no, we have a question here from our attaché in New York, Mr. Lardisabal, yeah, Kiko, and he's asking, no, as a former academe, how will COVID affect the demand for tourism workers for graduates of tourism, HRM, and related courses in the short and medium term? Should we review the current curriculum for these courses to match present and future demand? That's a very relevant question because that is probably something na hindi pa natin naiisip talaga masyado ngayon, but it is a valid question. How do you think this affects now our um, the demand for tourism workers? Anyone want to answer that? Anyone from the accommodations, Tin? How do you think this will affect our tourism graduates or tourism workers?
We have weathered so many storms in the past. Like for example, go back to history. We had Spanish flu. We had H1N1, SARS. We had Zika virus. But then we always bounce back. There will still be hotels. There will still be mice, and I believe once we have the vaccine and people are following protocols, sanitizing everything, washing of hands, people should wash hands, and all of these are in place. I believe that we still bounce back. We will bounce back. I know that there's a silver lining out there, and tourism will still go on. Tourism, travel will still go on. Like after this, maybe after 2 months, I'd like to go back to travel. I'd like to enjoy the beaches of the Philippines. Of course, I'll go domestic first. No,
Mm.
there is no need to worry about courses or doing revisions as of now. It's too early for that. In the
Okay.
past, we have those, and we will bounce back. I believe that.
Okay. Anyone else want to chime in on that question? Okay.
Well,
I have a
uh, okay.
we sino yan? Sino yan? Who is
Now go
that?
ahead. Go ahead, John. It's okay.
Bobby.
Yeah. Okay, Bobby. We also received another question, and this is something that's very contentious, and I don't mean to put you on the spot, but
Yeah.
a lot of people were also caught, no, with the lockdowns, and of course, the main concern always is what about the refunds, di ba? Yan yung pinakatanong lagi eh. Why do we get travel vouchers instead of refunds? So maybe you can shed some light on why that is so, or what policies are behind that.
So the general rule, of course, is to refund the money paid by the customer. Uh, but the reality is that the airlines have a cash squeeze at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a question of cash, not having it. Uh, so I would say that we are seeking the forbearance of the public with respect to the return of the fares that they have paid. So the interim mechanism that has been used by some carriers is a travel voucher in the meantime.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay. So kasi ano yan eh, that's really one of the more contentious issues right now,
Yes.
especially a lot of people caught caught unawares. And then also there were also questions regarding repatriation, no? Yung mga, let's say, mga taga NCR that were caught in the various provinces. Parang there were no parang they did not have any recourse as to how to get back to Manila and things like that because flights were being canceled also. So, uh, what recourse do they have in such cases?
If I get it right, in other words, they were not able to complete the return trip of their
Yes,
oh, well,
yes.
number one, I mean, the airlines across, I mean, all the airlines have relaxed their rules with respect to handling all tickets, no, that has been disrupted by COVID.
Mm,
So I'm sure that if they call on their travel agent or directly the airline regarding their situation, the standard rules would be relaxed.
okay, okay, yeah. For Joel,
Yes, sir.
um, yeah. uh, considering that I think
I lost you.
between guys, hello, yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, yes. Okay,
Yeah,
again.
between MICE and the leisure tours, I think we will be one of the last ones to probably rise from this. No, what steps are your stakeholders, especially in Paseos? What are they taking to weather the storm right now?
Uh, uh, it's a very difficult question to answer because in our association, there are not our needs are actually not homogeneous. No, like there are
Mm,
hotels, there are freight forwarders, tour operators, and organizers like us and venues. So while we belong to the same association, our needs are not exactly the same. So
mm,
for now, what we try to do is actually we ask for help from government to assist us. There are a little bit of conflict in terms of what we need. Example, as an organizer, I would like to get lower venue rates. Okay, but of course, our venue members will say there are also bleeding, so they need also we cannot extract our savings from the venues.
mm,
So what would be nice is for government to help the venues so that the venues can help us. It's more
yeah,
of like a domino effect because
yeah,
it's unfair for us to extract discounts, all our help from the airlines, from the hotels, from for our partners in terms of putting up our events. If they can give us a leg up in terms of discounts, that would be well and good. But essentially, because our industry, the mice industry, involves so many other sectors, we would really like government to help step in because I guess it's really unfair for me to say na uh, World Trade Center, bigyan mo ko ng 50% discount because they also need to survive. And admittedly, they are also hurt. I mean, it's not just the organizer that's hurt, but also the venue is also hurt. So now, given that there are different concerns here, all we can really look up to is government to help us. So praying, government.
yeah. Yeah, I think that was part of the recommendations also that we submitted to through the DOT na when
Yes,
we sent that. So of course, it will take a lot of coordination and cooperation from among all of us,
yes,
not just one side.
yes,
So yeah, thank you
yes.
for those comments. Someone just mentioned no, in our broadcast is that what is the point of view of the tour operators? Because we actually we sort of forgot to get a tour operator, but luckily I am a tour operator. So if the audience doesn't mind, let me put my tour operator hat on and take off my moderator hat. Um, my assessment of this is that like most of us, we do not have any revenues at the moment. It's zero. What we are looking at are the fastest would be at the end of the year, but being conservative, our projection is some semblance of normalcy won't be back in another 18 to 24 months. With the vaccine, probably we can shorten that to 12 to 18 months to get back to some sort of level of arrivals that we were getting prior to COVID. Um, we would want to have a vaccine already available, no? But my mantra right now is that no vaccine, no travel, and I think most of you will agree with that. Um, in the meantime, of course, we have already, as I've been mentioning, we have submitted to the DOT our recommendations as far as interventions are concerned for the industry for our sustainability. I think most of us are worried about business continuity and liquidity, and these are things that have already been sort of addressed by not necessarily directly by the DOT, but in pronouncements of the DTI and the Department of Finance. No, I think you've been reading a lot of um, articles about aid for SMEs, MSMEs, and we are actually most of us are included in there. I would dare think that about 60 to 70% of the tourism industry are composed of SMEs. The only probably big stakeholders you have would be the hotels, no. But even at that, there are also small, medium hotels that will fit. Um, Sometimes I know we are all getting impatient as to getting back on track. We also have to think about the mental well-being of our not only of ourselves but also of our staff, and that is something that we also need to address. As far as tourism is concerned, Tin is right. We will bounce back. We've been through a lot of bad experiences before. It's always a painful way to climb. It's always been painful to climb out of it, but we can. Ngayon lang, maybe because it's something unprecedented, something that was unexpected, that we are sort of a little still in shock as to how to react. But as the days go by, now we are trying to find ways, and we are actually coming up with ways to go back. And uh, one way of making ourselves productive, no. And if this is an appeal that I make also to our subsectors, I'm putting my TCP hat on, is that the government also needs our expertise as far as the new procedures for the new normal is concerned. Um, the government is not as maybe they lack also the expertise that we have as far as our own industry is concerned, and they are dependent on us to help them in coming up with the guidelines to be implemented. So it's going to be a collaborative effort between the stakeholders and the government. Kasi it's easy for them to submit to us whatever they will implement or what they want to implement, and then aangal tayo, bakit ganito, ganyan, ganyan. So what we want to do now is for us to submit also to government what we consider as doable para then they can marry the concepts that they have as far as the new normal is concerned. So that is an appeal to the associations that may be listening in right now in the various regions. Please come up with your proposals for what the new normal is, whether you're a hotel, you're a tour operator association, you're a tourist transport company, whether you're a small airline or a big airline. This is something that we will need to work on. Um, I would also like to take this opportunity now just to give a little bit of updates as far as the TCP is concerned. If with the indulgence of our speakers, no, I think we only have a few more minutes left. We have been working with the DOT with regard to the recovery program. We submitted our position paper last March 28, which contains a gamut of the recommendations that we have, and which was consulted with the various sectors. So we have items that delve with the accommodations, tour operations, transportation, MICE, and from what we understand, these have already been recommended to the appropriate agencies. DOT and TPB and the other attached agencies are also doing things. They are also addressing our concerns. It may not be in the form of direct financial assistance, but for example, international marketing will go on. Domestic marketing is something that we're also discussing. We've been having meetings with the various overseas offices of the DOT and with the TPB with regard to domestic travel. And these are programs that we will release to the stakeholders as soon as uh, they are firm. Um, we have been talking about domestic travel as the possible market for the moment. Yes, domestic travel is in. What people will be looking at for now will be places that are near to where they live, drivable areas. I think, and with all due respect to our airline representative, a lot of people are still wary to go on an airplane, not unless it's an emergency. And what people will be looking at will be places that are drivable. For example, for us here in Metro Manila, Baguio, La Union, Sagada, maybe even Bicol would be places that would be considered because it's closer to home and we can drive and doesn't need to get on a plane. Another trend that we have been seeing is that, and it was mentioned in the HSMA webinar earlier, is that people will be looking more for experiential travel. They want to get more out of their travel. People will now be looking to experience what a culture, what a country is all about, as opposed to just lying down in the sun for a week or so. I think people are realizing now that there is more to life than just tanning yourself on the beach. So, for those of you in the various destinations, I recommend that you come up with itineraries, with destinations, with attractions that are more towards experiential, even the spiritual, if I may say so. So those are things that they would be looking at. And most important, I think, and from the discussions we've been having with the DOT and with the task force and the various international tourism agencies, is that we have to be able to reassure travelers that we are a safe destination. That is one thing that is constant. People will travel to those destinations that can say that they are safe, that they are taking the precautions to guard against COVID, and this is something that we will really have to show them. And we are in discussions also again with the Department of Tourism to come up with materials that will show what we are doing as far as safety is concerned. So. That's the report for now. I'm thinking of writing sort of like a state of the industry paper as far as the TCP is concerned, and it will be a long paper which will explain what we've been doing in detail. But yes, so we are doing our best. The bottom line is we are doing our best. Your various associations, the Tourism Congress, the Department of Tourism, TPB, TIESA, all the attached agencies, we are doing our best to steer us through this crisis. And all we can hope for, of course, is to God to guide us here, whoever deity you believe in, and of course, the goodwill of all of us towards each other to help us get through all of this. So, with that, I would like to ask each speaker for their parting words before we conclude this afternoon's webinar. Let's start with the lady, Christine. Would you like to give us your last words?
Sure. As Lyndon Johnson said, yesterday is not ours to recover, but tomorrow is ours to win or lose. So let's choose to win. Thank you.
Okay. Okay. So beauty, VG. Can you please?
Thank you,
Can you?
Jojo.
Thank you, sir.
You know, uh, I think there's a light in the end of the tunnel. I've been here before. I've been in the Asian crisis, where you had to sell cars and buses in order to be able to make the next amortization. It took us, what, 2 years to recover. Then we had the Lehman Brothers crisis in 2009. Yeah, 2008, 2009. And it was a flat growth. There is nothing you can do but wait again for 2 years. So this one is deeper, but I think it will take the same amount of time. I believe in Jojo that, where when everybody starts to become comfortable, will be at least 2 years. But for us in the bus industry, we have alternatives because a bus you can also use for corporate. You can use for many things because transportation is a basic. Whether they're tourists or no tourists, people ride the bus. So in a sense that the people in transportation, you just have to be imaginative because transportation is always lacking. The infrastructure of transportation is bad in this industry. People will need cars. I mean, there's a shortage of what they call this grab taxi or something like that. You have a franchise for tourists, you can do that also in the meantime. So the hard hit here are the tourist cars that cater to the hotels.
Yeah.
Being that said, we're hopeful. I think in our industry, maybe if we are imaginative, you can recover in within the year. That I'm
Hopefully.
speaking of transport, no transport.
Yeah. Yeah. Hopefully.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much, Sir VG. Bobby, Attorney Bobby, please.
Yeah. Uh, yeah, the airline industry, together with travel and tourism, we've seen the ups and downs, no, of the business cycle. The airlines have had SARS that dried up passenger demand. We have seen the financial crisis that has affected travel demand also. While this may be the worst, I think we have to put faith in the fact that science and technology is working overtime.
Oh, naghang tayo.
That the vaccine will restore the travel and tourism industry. In the meantime, I think it is the faith and resiliency of all the players, and in fact, being creative, no, in seizing opportunities or uncovering opportunities in the market. For the airline industry, more technology uh, in the airport, less person-to-person contact would be initiatives that would bring about efficiency. Um, I think you can also expect the airline industry to be smaller the next 2 years, smaller in terms of its ability to service destinations and having more frequencies. Um, but at the end of the day, the role of rendering public service, no, is first and foremost in the minds of the airline industry, because beyond tourism, we simply have to deliver in our task in connecting people and cities now for trade and commerce, and to making sure that we deliver on that obligation.
Okay. Thank you very much, Bobby. Uh, okay, before we go to Joel, I just wanted to have a shout out to our tour guides all around the country. We have not forgotten you. We are working with you. Rest assured, we are doing our best also to address your concerns. Tour guides are also a vital part of the industry, and we have not forgotten you. Hindi namin kayo nakalimutan. So we will be in touch with you. Joel, please.
Okay. I just again would like to end with the message that in terms of domestic tourism and international tourism, MICE is a very powerful tool to re-energizing these industries. Um, at the end of the day, while we are indeed devastated and suffering, I do believe that the Filipino is resilient, that the Filipino is creative, and that we will survive this. Just keep the faith, everybody. We will get over this.
Thank you very much, Joel. Short and sweet.
Yes.
Before we end, no, just my final thing is that always remember yung kasabihan, it is always darkest before the dawn. So it is up for us to find our way through the darkness and to go to the dawn. So konting tiyaga pa lang, konting kapit pa tayo, but I'm very confident that we will all get through this uh, in one way or another. So thank you very much to everyone who tuned in today. I think we reached about 1,000 viewers today. So we hope you found our talk today very interesting. To our speakers, thank you very much for indulging us and for being here and giving your sharing your insights with us. To the Xlink team, Orly, thank you very much for being there also. And we wish everyone a good afternoon and see you soon. Thank you very much.
Thank you,
Thank
everybody.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.